Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to tell those watching at home, is they going to be able to watch the whole thing or is it just not on TV? Okay, good, because we had some technical difficulties about 10 minutes ago, so hopefully you can hear and see us. This meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. Addition and deletions to the agenda, anything? Okay, approval of the agenda then. The council approved the agenda for the August 11th, 2026 meeting as presented. So moved by Councillor Strong, second by Councillor Babineau. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Approval of the minutes. The council approved the July 14th, 2026 regular meeting minutes as presented. Moved by Councillor Strong, second by Councillor Fullerton. Oh, sorry. Let everybody have to move it. Councillor. Okay. Noted. So you're good with the motion then as changes? Okay, is seconder fine with that? Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried. We have no presentations tonight. We get on to the public input and questions. Nobody has signed up, but if either one would like to speak, you're more than welcome. It's open mic night. Okay. So we'll move on to correspondence then. So 8.1, just a letter from Gordon Fraser. Don't think we have to deal with anything there.
You just want to know what it is?
Yeah, okay, there's a letter about using the use of off-road vehicles on town streets. So at this point, I don't think this council is considering it, so we can move along to 8.2. There's a thank you letter there from Lunenburg County Wheels for our donation or sponsorship of their program of $10,000. I'll go to the fourth one next is the RCMP municipal billing model. It's basically just there for information, and we'll learn more about that as the new legislation and that unfolds. We have been guaranteed, though, I've been guaranteed by both MLA and others in government that we will be paying less, but we'll be responsible for more things that the RCMP now do, like sort of mainly community policing things. And we're a little ahead of some other municipalities, whereas we have some bylaw officers and we have a bylaw team right now, so we'll be able to do some of those things probably sooner than other municipalities will. Go ahead there, Paul.
Through you, Chair, until we know what the legislation is and how it's changing and how that's going to dynamically change levels of enforcement or levels of service, we can't say that. But what I can say is the Department of Justice is going to be meeting with the town to review the billing model, what has been presented in this letter, as well as to discuss sort of the next steps of where the province is going. So that's coming here by the end of August.
Yes, we're all waiting for that. Then 8.3 is a sponsorship request from Golf for Fishermen, and for that I am actually going to declare a conflict and pass the meeting over to the deputy mayor.
Okay, so in correspondence, we have a letter or a request for sponsorship from the, sponsorship package note from Golf for Fishermen's, and it is an annual event, and we have, as a community, the town has traditionally been a sponsor. So looking for, and the event is sometime soon.
September.
Right, September. So open the floor to discussion on how this gets handled. We would traditionally, with requests like this, have a staff report looking at the community grants policy and how that would be handled there. Or we can handle it by giving consideration to the options that are made available as sponsorship options in the letter of request. And the I was going to look up, and that's what I was caught off guard doing when I was called to the chair with respect to what we had done in the past.
Through you, Chair, traditionally looking at review, it's been the gold level anywhere between $250 and $499 is what council has approved over previous allocations.
So that information is helpful, I think. And we also, I'd also actually maybe ask staff for council's benefit. And I think it's elsewhere in our report because we have another request that we're dealing with tonight about the amount that's remaining in the community grant fund.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, council has $3,000 remaining in your community grant fund based on the community grant policy that was fully approved at the June 23rd meeting. So that is the remaining funds you have for the year for any other requests coming forward.
So given the timeliness of this, would we look to defer it for feedback or from council, or would you like to, or from staff rather, or would you like to deal with the request as it stands with the additional information provided? Yes, Councillor Dolphin.
Traditionally, Paul, do we get any other kind of requests in the fall?
Through you, Chair, it really depends. It's dependent on what groups and organizations are hosting events. From what we've seen in the last year, it really did quiet down into the fall, but you did see an uptake January, February, March for additional funding requests. You have a reasonable amount of money to work with within your community grant policy and fund. So I mean, to council again, I should say it was between 250 and 500. So you balance between the gold and the platinum sponsorship is what it's always been. But traditionally, that's what you provided. Overall, I think you have enough funds that with the other request that's here, if you choose to support or not, I think you'll have enough funds to make it through till March and new budget cycle.
Councillor Babineau.
I would be happy to make a motion that we do the same as last year. So matching whatever the dollar was, it 500. Okay, so that would make us a platinum. Yeah, so I would be happy to move that forward. I mean, we could put it off, but it would be cutting it, I think, rather close by the time the next council meeting rolls around. So yeah, happy to make that motion if others are so inclined.
Okay, there's a motion moved by Councillor Babineau. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Strong. Any further discussion? Ready for the question then? All in favor, raise your right hand. And no one left to oppose, so the motion is carried. Call the mayor back to his chair.
Thank you very much. There's no business arising or unfinished business. So we're to new business, 10.1. It's the ice allocation policy. So Christy, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Tonight, we are seeking approval of the draft ice allocation policy as presented last meeting, July 14th. And just to update from that meeting, council requested to receive the ice allocation matrix, which was attached to the package. And also there was discussion about adding Mahone Bay as a resident, which has also been added. Initially, we only noted MODL as a resident due to financial contributions to our arena. And it should be noted that the town of Mahone Bay does not currently provide any financial contributions to the arena. However, we did add that piece in, you will notice, as highlighted into the policy. So after last month's meeting, there was only those two things as requested and added. So
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Christie? Counselor Strong?
Thank you, Christy. Um, I have like minor tweaking that came up after looking at it again last week, but now, or last meeting. But now I'm gonna dig into the objective versus subjective analysis in how we create spaces for marginalized groups or underrepresented groups. And there's one word in here or one expression, staff experience, which I think could possibly get us into, that's under purpose of the scoring guide, just before general scoring principles. And I think that having a subjective phrase in there or measurement can present a risk of a, a favoritism or something like that. So I think I would, instead of having this subjective, I would add in and past records into I'm just very mindful of human rights. We sometimes don't realize that we are being discriminatory when we enter into the subjective analysis. And so there's that. And also, again, human rights, youth participation, I think that's excellent. Diversity, inclusion, equity, accessibility, and belonging. Where does age fit in there in terms of seniors? Because I know that that's another group in the community that we are trying to keep active and involved in sports wherever possible. Is there any measurement for that? Or does that fall under just plain accessibility? So I guess that might impact the point scoring, which or it might be missed in scoring points is I guess what my concern would be. I think that's it for me. I have just because of the way my mind works. I'd like to see the definitions now that I looked at it a little bit more closely. Really pronounced under definitions like bolded, tournament and special event, bolded, and then what does that mean? Partner group, bolded, and then what does that mean? Because I did have a problem, and it might be the way my mind works, trying to find those definitions when I was reading the policy, and I probably even read them, but I didn't understand that they were the definitions. That's just me. So here I am. That's all I have to say.
through the chair, certainly some of the language could be updated and changed. I think that would be an easy switch if that's what council's asking for. And true, the definitions, it is a big policy and it is quite wordy. So I can see bolding that being helpful. And of course, age could fit under accessibility, or it could be more clearly defined. But you will see in the scoring that the intent is to ensure that we are, treating folks across all generations and throughout all demographics to make sure. But if you look at our calendar, you will see there's a mix right now of adult designated time. So just ensure that the policy is supporting and making sure that we are being transparent with all groups. So we can make those changes if that's the wish.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess for me, a policy actually is stronger than a bylaw for people, for regulating something like the arena. So to have it as crisp and clear as possible to avoid any kind of subjective analysis would be right up my alley of thinking.
Any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor?
I know I was the one that raised the Mahone Bay at the last meeting, not having had a chance to read it through very carefully. And so going over it again in preparation for this meeting, I'm calling into question that addition, but also calling into question the inclusion of MODL in our policy. And I'm looking at it from a perspective of, complicating things unnecessarily. I know that they do have and have traditionally been financial contributors to our operating costs, because we do have a cost to operating our recreation facilities. But to my understanding, and I'd look to staff for clarification on this, it's not a set amount or a budget line item for MODL. It's an annual ask that we have to make, that we initiate, and it is at their discretion to give some or none. And we have been fortunate; they have given at least a little bit, whether or not it's to the proportions that we would have anticipated always. And we've been, grateful for the support we received, particularly in this past year. And, but it is tenuous. It's not a given. So having that group highlighted and included on equal footing with residents of the town of Lunenburg, I think is somewhat problematic. And then there's the whole idea of communities of interest and where we've traditionally drawn user groups from. And, with the fact that then, and I mentioned Mahone Bay because they don't have an arena, and they have traditionally come to Lunenburg as their home facility. Most residents, that is, but that was a traditional file. I don't know if that's still the case. I also don't know. And also, I guess when we're looking at MODL residents, MODL is pretty big. The part of MODL that surrounds the town of Lunenburg, those users definitely see the Lunenburg Arena as their home arena, as we hope they do, and as we appreciate that they do. But, not so much maybe for people in Conqueror Bank or Hebville or, Bars Corner or some other areas of MODL. So, do those folks still get the same kind of nod of inclusion that we would envision for those who are in First Peninsula and First South and, at our doorstep? So I'm not looking at this as an inclusion exclusion, just kind of trying to understand what we're going to capture in this policy and what makes sense. So I don't know if there's, if my thought was that we should look a little deeper into this before including those residents of external or other municipal units into our policy, both Mahone Bay and MODL, to have an understanding and perhaps a discussion with those other entities to see if there is an understanding that meets ours as to ensuring that they have opportunities through the use of our arena as they typically have, and that we're not exclusionary of someone because of where they live, because I don't think that's our intent. The intent is to be inclusive and to properly provide for, but there is the, financial responsibility, and we have to be mindful of the fact that it is the citizens of the town of Lunenburg who, through their tax base, support these facilities in their entirety. So not sure how to deal with that, but I think it's an issue we need to come to grips with in formulating this policy.
Good.
Through the chair, I'm not sure if there was anything that I can speak to, given that some of the prior year's contributions through MODL. We do know that this year would definitely be one of the higher years, but like you said, it's based on the appetite of their council as well. this year, 60,000 towards our operating cost and then another 60,000 towards our plant upgrades is generous this year. But like I can appreciate not including that piece in the policy. But again, I'm open to whatever direction that may be, and it's hard for me to speak on the prior years and leading up to now.
Through you, Chair, maybe consideration for council is Modal and Mahone Bay are left out of the policy for now until maybe we have an arranged agreement for stronger funding partnerships, to which at that point can be relayed back to the policy. The goal when reading the policy and at the end is we have the right to review and modify and change based on new information, new agreements, new processes. So if just providing an option for council if you want to consider that within this policy.
I think it's an opportunity maybe for us to get the ice allocation policy in place, so we have something going into the winter season. But in the meantime, I also see it as an opportunity for some of us to sit down with Mayor Elspeth and Mayor Lonis Croft and just discuss this issue with them and see what their appetite is. I mean, we've seen Modal's been very generous this year, and they actually gave us what we asked for, so we certainly can't complain there. We've never asked Mahone Bay, so we also can't complain about their contribution either. But that could have been an oversight for the last 20 years, quite honestly, because they've been using it for, that's where their men's team used to play out of years ago when they had industrial league, right? So so I'd be okay with us if we'd pass the policy with that sort of caveat that this year, before this year's budget, as we get into the budget, we sit down and meet with them. And it would be nice if we had a deal from both, but especially Modal. I'm not saying the same percentage, but a deal like we do with the fire service, that we know every year at budget time what they're going to give us, so we don't have to ask and hope that this council is willing to work with us more than, say, the last council might have been. So I do agree that maybe getting like a 5-year plan in place every 5 years obviously would make more sense, and I think it would be easier on staff for sure when it came to budget time, and it would also be easier on us, because I don't think it's really necessary for us to have to lobby our colleagues from Modal annually at functions for an amount of money that we ask for, right? So I think something should get put in place, but I'm okay with the CAO's suggestion that we could make the motion tonight to pass the policy so we have something in place when people come this fall, but that we look to tweak it down the road. But I can't make a motion, so. Councilor Strong? Gail, I'll let Gail go first. She hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, a couple of comments more than anything, not so much the questions, although I do have a question about the scheduling and as one who has been involved with some pretty complicated and layered schedules for events and for facilities, I can only imagine, my head spins. But thank you for all the work, because you've done a really thorough job. When it comes to the scoring, one of the things that I would like to understand a little bit better, which doesn't need to be right now, but one of the things that I'd like to understand is how those scores are weighted, in terms of, minor hockey versus sledge hockey. Obviously, there's a demand for one more so than the other, but again, we want to look to all of the availability and balance it as best we can. So that's a question, I guess, but it doesn't need an answer now. And, when I read the policy and how comprehensive it is, the only, I guess, question is that because it looks to all the possibilities for availability of the facilities, is this the kind of a policy that we could roll out across the different facilities and have sort of a policy that covers all the points? This one covers for all the other facilities as well, because that might, again, streamline the whole allocation policy for all the recreational facilities, and that's got to be helpful.
Through the chair, That's a very good point. And it is best practice to have a policy for all the facilities, or one that encompasses, the community center and fields. Easier said than done for sure, but that is probably the next one on our agenda. And traveling around to conferences and meetings, it comes up all the time to ensure that we are, seeking all options and making sure that, not one group is more prioritized over the other. It just happens to be the arena would be the most, I would say, sought out facility, and the most amount of requests that we have that is very hard to fulfill. So just to make sure that when these emails are coming in and staff are being approached and asked for all these extra ice times, this one came up as like a top priority. The next one would be a facility use policy as well. Very similar, maybe a little less comprehensive due to the nature of the facilities, but it's the next thing. And now that we have this, hopefully this would be a framework that we can base this off of and take these lessons learned to the next building. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Daphne.
All right, I'm not going to be popular, but who cares? The sign on the rink is Lunenburg War Memorial Arena. It's not the Tri-Town, Tri-Counties, or Tri-whatever. I think if some of the modal citizens use it and Mahone Bay citizens use it, then by all means, we should be getting some sort of compensation. It's not a penalty because you live in Blue Rocks. It's just the way it is. And I think the mayors of both of Modal and Mahone Bay would probably understand that they can't supply it. We can. Let's chip in and play a bigger part of this, and let's promote it, and let's try to use it more. But if we need to sit down with the both mayors, I'd love to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Is anybody else? Councillor Strong.
I guess I really do owe you a thanks for this, because as I said at the last meeting, human rights law evolves by how we treat hockey in Canada. We never let women play hockey in the men's arena, or they weren't, 40 years ago, that wasn't a possibility. So obviously, I think this is a policy that's going to evolve over time too. And kudos, like if we didn't have a policy before, I am surprised, but yeah, I've been here for a year and I do realize that we don't. So I am ready to make that motion unless there's somebody else here that wants some input.
Anybody? Deputy Mayor.
I have more questions, but they can be asked on the motion. So either way.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the policy with amendments, or I guess that would include directing staff to revise specific provisions as discussed, and subsequently have a meeting with the other municipalities. Is that it?
So it's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Fullerton. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Thanks. Councillor Strawn mentioned the definitions, and I had some questions about the terms that we're using and then therefore having to define in our policy. And one of those is partner group. And I really was unclear, although I do have the definition here. I couldn't come up with an example I was confident that fit that definition of partner group. So I'm wondering if you can help clarify what we're talking about when we're referencing partner groups.
Through the chair, as Councillor Strawn noted, maybe partner groups could be a bolded title. So in our policy, I'm just going to read it out actually. It's defined as a nonprofit organization that is based within the town of Lunenburg or municipality of the district of Lunenburg, primarily provides programming for youth 18 years of age and under, provides recreational programming that addresses a distinct community need and is recognized by the town as a partner group and meets any additional eligibility requirements established by the town. So we could change that language if it's the direction of council. We could be more descriptive, like a nonprofit youth programming, which includes as our minor hockey, our sledge hockey, figure skating. We could define, a partner organization to make sure that we're meeting different criteria that makes it more clear in the definition. But that would be including a lot of what we already have existing there. So that would be social minor hockey, the Western Riptides, and we have Blue Nose Academy, Bayview, Parkview, some Goldie groups looking to come. So it would be any of those types of nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to identify, and I guess that's, you get into the problem then with the policy of having to update if those groups change and that sort of thing. So I understand the need or the desire to try to, in a kind of generic way, trying to capture who we're talking about, but I really wasn't clear. And even in naming them, in the description, based in the town of Lunenburg or the municipality, the district of Lunenburg, and when you have social minor hockey, that's Bridgewater, Lunenburg, that's even beyond Lunenburg and the municipality. So it just gets, the more we try to define and to capture, sometimes the more we get tripped up because it's hard to capture all the groups. So we like using a generic term like nonprofit organizations, such as, whatever, and then kind of try to define them as youth, because it actually kind of missed the point that we're specifically talking about youth here again. So that would then, exclude some other adult groups, presumably. So, and what makes them a partner group as opposed to just a nonprofit organization that's a sporting organization. So I'm really just grappling with the succinctness of that. And similarly with the heading of boards of education, are we just talking about schools? And if we are, can we not just use that word and say school groups, school or education groups? Because we don't even, our school isn't, Blue Nose Academy, our local school isn't even run by a board of education anymore officially. It's a social regional center for education, which is through the Board of Education, or the Department of Education through the province. So again, the language just gets confusing. So, those are in looking at, trying to be, and I understand the intention was to try to kind of capture those groups that are important and significant somehow. But I'm just struggling to see the clarity in the groups that we've attempted to put in under our definitions.
Through the chair, again, if the language would like to be changed, if that's the direction, I think it could be. It could also include, there's also, daycares as well. So it could just be some form of an encompassing term to cover. We can remove the word school boards, or it could just be schools, which also covers potentially the daycare piece or any privatized groups as well. But if it's up to the language, we can include that one as well. Whatever the appetite is for the naming of that heading.
Well, I'd welcome some feedback from the colleagues. I don't know, I have these questions. Maybe it's clear as a bell to others, but yeah, I would welcome some changes as Ms. Thibault suggested, and just to clarify that with example groups.
Anybody else have any? Oh, Councilor Babineau, it's behind the thing.
Yeah, sorry, I should sit up. Wondering though about, I guess, just as a piece of feedback, If we use examples in a policy of groups, not only would they potentially need to be updated from time to time, but would there, and maybe, I don't know, Councillor Stone, perhaps you can speak to this with your experience. Would there be any issue with that in terms of like subjectivity and maybe the idea that there's preference being given to those groups?
It could be an issue it could. I mean, anything can be an issue. But it's also important to note that council is responsible for this policy. If there were a human rights issue that came up, it would be against the council of the town of Lunenburg. So that's why it's really important to have that definition be crisp so that it's someone is not being, a group is not being excluded, just because they don't make the cut somehow. I don't know. I don't know I'd have to think about this one, how you would make it more crisp. But I know it's really important to have nonprofit organization terminology in there for the partner group. And if you just said something like secondary school or primary school activities or something like that, that would be a much broader scope than naming a specific team or school.
Through you, Chair, very similar, like you could just as the Director of Recreation noted, you can note it as minor sport, minor, like, and then that's all encompassing of minor sport, anything under the age of 18 that way, or minor, an organization that provides activities to youth under the age of 18. So you're not limiting yourself. We're not naming necessarily an actual like South Shore Minor Hockey, but it's still encompassing of a nonprofit organization providing minor sport, minor activity, those types of levels. It keeps it generic enough while still meeting the goals, what I think council is trying to achieve here.
Anything else? Are you okay with the changes that the CAO and Christie have talked about adding? Deputy Mayor?
I guess I'm just not clear. I mean, I'm open to those suggestions of how to rename or re-identify some of those things, but I guess it's hard to prove something that you haven't seen in its finite version. So I'd still be reluctant to just kind of leave it in limbo that way. So that would be my thought.
Through you, council, you do have the option of tabling and having a new draft come forward with amendments to the definitions and everything that has been outlined already. We can bring it back to the September meeting and have you review for approval at that point. So you do have that option as well. Through you, Chair, that also doesn't stop us from booking programs now because we are into that ice allocation season. So we would still work under the presumption of still trying to book ice in a fair and equitable process like we normally do. Again, putting it on paper just codifies what we've been trying to do and to represent a fair and transparent process for everyone. Just within this process, it's never been written as noted previously.
Deputy Mayor?
I just to follow up on what our CEO has said, I fully agree. I think I don't know. Hopefully we haven't run into any major issues. I think our staff has done a fairly good job, and we certainly just want it to try to capture that in a written form, and make and beef it up if it needs to be if it's not clear that we're trying very hard to be fair and equitable and accessible. So I'd rather we get to a spot where we're more comfortable with the written form and with an understanding that our staff will be doing their utmost to ensure we meet all of the intentions, our goals in this. In the meantime, I mean, it's just an unfortunate, as far as I know, you've tried to get this done over the summer before this had to be actually implemented, but with all the objectives kind of there, captured somehow in the policy. Hopefully we could implement those, strive to meet those objectives, and then still look to have the wording recrafted somewhat.
Any other comments? The only comment I'd make, and it's about the policy, sort of, it's more about some of the comments that I've made and others have made. We have to be very careful at this table when we sit here and start talking about the Lunenburg arena. I mentioned it, some other councilors mentioned it. Our partners and our neighbors have certainly spent a lot of money in the past 2 years on the Saw Pit Wharf, Miller's Peace Park, and, places like the LCLC that we do not contribute to, that our residents certainly use on a regular basis. So we have to be somewhat careful, and I have to watch myself at times because, it is sort of a give and take thing in this area. And we want to talk about, shared services and regionalization. So we don't want to make ourselves I guess we don't want to charge for everything that everyone uses. So we have to be a bit careful when we talk about that, because they could all of a sudden put a fee on, for example, the Saw Pit Wharf that a ton of locals use for boating. So that's just one example. So that's all I'd say. I'm okay either way. If we want to pass it and tweak it, or if we want to defer it, that's up to you. There is a motion on the table. So the person that made the motion can change the motion, or they can actually withdraw the motion. At this point, 'cause we didn't vote. So they can withdraw the motion, and then we can, Allison. So it's in the motioner's hands right now.
I hate to do this, but I'm going to withdraw the motion, and let's tighten up that definitions thing under partner group and come back with this early September.
So the motion has been withdrawn. As a seconder, okay with that? Who's seconded it? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so do we need a motion to direct staff to go back and come back, or can we just?
Through you, Chair, it's your motion. There was a motion provided to update. So basically to table, bring back a new version with updated definitions.
And I'm making a point of it not being everything. It's just the partner group seems to be giving the biggest issue. And it's the definition. I'm wondering where the partner group came from. Was it in other policies? Okay. So maybe we need something that's just I don't know. Maybe look at it in language that makes sense to us.
Okay, so are we making the third? We're making the second alternative.
Yes, through you, Chair, you're motioning to table for additional feedback and changes.
So Councillor Strong has moved that. Councillor Fullerton seconded. Okay, so any further discussion or question on the new motion? So we're voting now to table the report until it comes back with some revisions, correct? Okay. All those in favor of that motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. Motion carried, 5-2 vote with Councillors Babineau and the mayor voting against the motion. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 10.2, which is Be the Peace Institute Community Grant Request. There's a couple different recommendations there, and I'm not going to read them each out. So we'll just open up the floor. First, we'll get Christy to, tell us about it, and then we'll open up the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Me again. Okay, so before you is an in-kind community grant request from Be the Peace Institute. This report is an update on the in-kind community grant request from Be the Peace for its 10th anniversary community event taking place at our Lunenburg Community Center on October 17th. So this request was originally received at our June 23rd, 2026 regular council meeting. The organization is requesting a waiver of the 5-hour facility rental fee. This has a value of $300, taxes included. This request would be recorded as an in-kind community grant and funded through our existing 2026-2027 community grant fund. As of right now, our records show that we have a remaining balance of $3,000 in that account. And just for some background on this event, it's intended to support community awareness, dialogue, and engagement around gender-based violence, gender equity, and social justice. The organization has a longstanding connection to our community center as it's been identified as a location where it originally began its community planning work in 2012. So.
Thank
back to
you.
Through you, council, just again, update, you have $2,500 remaining in your fund from the 500 you've provided to the golf club.
Okay, thank you, both of you. So are there any questions, concerns, comments that any of you would like to make? Count. Okay, there's a motion. Which one are you making there, Councilor Fullerton? The first one?
Where is it? That council approved, there it is. The council approved an in-kind community grant to Be the Peace Institute in the amount of $300, representing the waiver of the Lunenburg Community Center rental fee for its 10th anniversary community event on Saturday, October 17th, 2026, and that the in-kind contribution be funded through the 2026-27 Community Grant Fund.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Greek. Any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor.
Not discussion, just comment. I think that it's an incredibly powerful group. They have done amazing work over the years, and I'm pretty sure I was at the inaugural event and a number of them after that held at our community center. So it's very fitting that their 10th anniversary be celebrated there.
Thank you. And if they need anyone from this table to attend, if you're available, that'd be great, because my nephew's getting married in Antigonish that night, so I'll be in Antigonish. So, right. So there's a motion on the floor. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. So now we're moving on to 10.3, and we're going to give Christy a break, and we're going to call on Tyson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening to everyone. This evening, have a staff report for the new dump truck RFP award. So the recommendation from staff is the council award the new dump truck request for proposals to ECI Trucks in the amount of $338,140.26 plus tax. So the background on this item was included in the 26-27 capital budget as a replacement for the existing 2009 dump truck that Public Works possesses. So the RFP included the dump truck with dump box, a 10-foot snow plow, plow gear, and salt spreader. The RFP closed on July 22nd and is valid till mid-October. The report includes a table showing the 3 proposals that were received, the one from ECI Trucks and 2 from Nova Truck Centres. So the amount included in the 26-27 town capital budget is $380,000, including the net HST, with funding sourced from debt. Based on our 2 most recent truck purchases being the same as the ECI proposal with the HV 607 body, it would keep us consistent with that. the previous dump trucks have the Tenco system that I think we've talked about before. That's no longer available. So this proposal includes a La Rochelle box and plow. But we're confident in the suitability of that equipment. And there's other municipalities that are also using that equipment as an alternative to Tenco. So based on all the factors, again, staff recommending we award the RFP to ECI, with it coming in under budget as well, town not incurring as much debt as was forecast. So a positive there. That concludes the report. If there are questions, I can do my best.
Thank you, Tyson. Any questions for Tyson? Councillor Fullerton.
What's our delivery time?
So through the chair, the delivery time summarized in the table. So it says 330 days. So we say a year. So we're still going to have to use the 09 through this winter as our third truck. But that's kind of what it is with this type of equipment. It's not dissimilar to our previous purchase, and you can see that between the three proposals, 330 days, 365 days, 330 days. So 11 months is kind of where we're at.
Councillor Grieg.
Just a couple of questions, Tyson. First off, obviously the 09 is reaching the end of its life. How do we expect it to be in terms of getting through the winter? Do we anticipate any issues with its availability potentially, or is she on track to hopefully make it through?
So through the chair, following last winter, there's some repairs that were required. So we have those in hand now, but it's a truck that's provided 17 years of service. When I joined the town, it was our number 2 truck, so it's had a heavy load. We'll do our best to manage its use. It's bumped down to number 3 on the pecking order now, but I wish I had a solid answer I could give you there, but I think I'd be I don't want to mislead you, and but we'll do our best to manage it through the use and finding the right situations for it.
And just one other question. Obviously, throughout the process, your preference had been to have the Tenco equipment on the truck. Do you anticipate any hassle or, inconvenience for Public Works with the La Rochelle equipment as the option that we're going with?
So through the chair, you're exactly correct. Tenco had been our preference, and it's what our operators are familiar with, what we're familiar with maintaining. And unfortunately, Tenco has 0 distribution in Atlantic Canada anymore, and none of the proponents are dealing with them. So we've had this same scope out last year. We chose to pass, hoping that Tenco would resolve or find a distributor, and we're still not there. And we still have that 09 truck that if one of our other trucks, something happens, we need to step up. And that just feels like it's not a good long-term strategy, which I think council acknowledges by including in the budget. So I think there'll be a bit of a learning curve with us with this different box, but as I said in the report, other municipalities are choosing this option as well, and there can be some shared knowledge and learnings as we progress there too. So I'm confident that it won't be a drawback in the long term.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyson.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Daphne.
So what's the main difference between the Tenco system and the La Rochelle system? Like, what kind of learning curve are we talking about?
Well, each manufacturer has sort of their intellectual and subtle differences, but the Tenco box has the conveyor on the inside with the spreader. This one does as well. It's just, I guess our crew is more familiar with it. They're comfortable with it. With any new system, even if it's a similar one, there's just subtle differences there. But again, with our expertise, I'm confident that we can get there.
I just want to remind you, Tyson, us old girls, if you treat us right, will last for a long, long time. So be gentle with her.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, there's a recommendation in front of us that council award the new trackless request for proposals RFP to ECI trucks for the amount of $338,140.26 plus HST. Is someone prepared to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Greek. You have to actually read it out.
I will make a slight adjustment to it, as I believe there was miswording in it. I would recommend that council award the new dump truck request for proposals to ECI trucks for the amount of $338,148.26 plus HST.
So it's been moved. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Strong. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Oh, raise your right hand. Okay, do you have a question? The miswording is the word trackless, I think, in there maybe? Yes. That was an earlier piece of equipment we bought. Yeah, that was the sidewalk plow, the trackless. It's no big deal. Motion was made without trackless in it. It was seconded. So all those in favor, raise your right hand. What? Yeah, the report is just the recommendation on our agenda. So, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's the front agenda.
Yeah, it's the front agenda right here in the recommendation on the report. It's right. It's just on our agenda page. So no, all good. We're not buying another sidewalk plow. So now we'll move on to 10.4. Tyson again.
Thank you again, Your Worship. The next report here is to do with the Pelham Street Sidewalk Renewal Tender Award. So there's two recommendations included. The first is that council increase the total budget for the Pelham Street Sidewalk Renewal Project to $560,000, including net HST, with funding of $200,000 from deed transfer taxes and $360,000 from capital reserves. And then the second recommendation is that council award the Pelham Street Sidewalk Renewal Tender to Dexter Construction Company Limited for the amount of $469,110 plus the tax. So the background on the project is the sidewalk renewal is intended to replace the existing sidewalk along Pelham Street from the town limit at Rasmusbrook up to Shipyard Hill Road. So it's a relatively old asphalt sidewalk along that stretch that's in poor condition, as noted in the report. So that total length is 375 meters of the concrete sidewalk, plus curb and driveway with curb and driveway openings, the road and landscape reinstatements on the abutting properties towards them, and will create compliance with accessibility standards. It also includes a rapid flashing beacon at the crosswalk of Pelham and Saw Pit. So just on the crest of the hill there. So in terms of the tender, it closed on July 23rd and is valid for 60 days. The table summarizes the two bids that were received. Both are compliant. So a bid from ARCP and then one from Dexter. And it should be apparent there's a significant value difference there. So based on what was received, and then both being compliant, both staff and our consultant have reviewed the submissions and recommending going with the lowest bid in this situation. In terms of the financial aspects, the amount included in the 26-27 town capital budget for the project was $470,000, including the net HST. So in the table, staff have outlined a revised budget based on the bid amounts and then including a contingency as well. So this would need to increase by $90,000 up to $560,000 in total. The additional $90,000 is proposed to come from the capital reserves, and our colleagues in finance have confirmed their recommendation that there's sufficient funding within those reserves to able to accommodate the $90,000. That concludes the report, but if there are questions, can answer them.
Thank you, Tyson. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Strong?
The town's heading into a birthday celebration, isn't it? Weird, but I remember the last birthday celebration we had at the Brook, I'll call it because I can't pronounce the ROUS. That pavement was horrible and people were tripping as we walked from the Brook up to the center of the town. So that's 25 years ago or 20 years ago. I'm not sure. Anyway, we do have a birthday coming up and I don't want to see anybody tripping and falling on it. So I'm prepared to move it unless there are other people that don't agree with me.
Okay, you can move the recommendation anyways. We can comment after, so you can read off that recommendation.
I'm going to move that that we increase the total budget for the Pelham Street Sidewalk Renewal Project to $560,000, including net HST, with funding of $200,000 from the deed transfer taxes and $360,000 from capital reserves.
Okay, that's the first motion. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Babineau. Any discussion on that motion? Anyone? Or I just have one question or comment. We are redoing or upgrading, I should say, our hydro poles and lines out that stretch. So have we coordinated with NSPI? Because I'd hate to see us put a new sidewalk down and then rip it up.
So through the chair, yes, there have been discussions with the electric utility. There's 3 poles on that side that just have communication wires on them that have been identified to be upgraded before this work commences.
Excellent, thank you. So there's a motion and a seconder. Any other questions? All those in favor of the first motion, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Now you're prepared to move the second motion. Go ahead, Councillor Strong.
I'm going to move that council award the Pelham Street Sidewalk Renewal Tender to Dexter Construction Company Limited for the amount of $469,110 plus HST.
It's removed. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Fullerton. Any further discussion? Councillor Fullerton.
What do you anticipate the timeline to be for this project, Tyson?
So through the chair, within the bid, we did ask the tenderers to nominate their completion time, and Dexter included 11 weeks, and that's from time of award. We did have a stipulation that the work be done by the end of October, because that's generally when you get into the cold weather provisions and the hot mixes, and you want to avoid that if you can, even though it's able to be mitigated. We would have ended up paying more money for it. So we're trying to avoid that. But once it's been awarded, then we'll look to firm that time up with the contractor. They're 11 weeks, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're just giving themselves that full window. But once they know they have the work, then we can firm that up and we can keep everyone updated from there.
If I'm not mistaken, these are the same folks that did our new sidewalk on Tannery Road.
Through the chair, that's correct. Yes.
And we also saw how smooth and fast that went for a road that really has no other, like, to get to Abco or the golf course, you have to get in down that road for primarily, and they were in and out in a couple, about a month and a half, 2 months. So again, it was incredible, and they knew what they were doing. So again, I hope that they get this one done in plenty of time. So thank you. So all those in favor of the second motion, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Okay, now we're moving on to 10.5, Town of Lunenburg Council accomplishments and forward strategic priorities, 10.5.
Thank you, Council. What this is a report for information for consolidation and a summary for council accomplishments from August 2025 to July of 2026. So in hearing from council, you've wondered about how you celebrate your wins and how you understand what and how you've accomplished goals of council. So what I did was I took the information from our agendas and minutes for the last year and compiled them for you into hopefully a fairly concise reporting structure for you to understand what you've done and how you've effectively implemented goals, changes, objectives that you've provided. So it is quite a long summary list, but you've done things like under governance and leadership, you've helped establish senior leadership teams and continued moving through your motion action list, which has been pretty impressive. You've retained the electrical utility and approved a $21 million capital budget, to which we are engaging in. Under the water utility, we've launched a town-wide water meter program with right now about 94% completion rate to date. On your wastewater infrastructure, we are still completing the $12 million upgrades to the SBR tank and system, which is going to provide way better services for our wastewater system. Housing, we've been moving through the Housing Accelerator Fund with affordable housing tax relief programs and modifying other grant programs and eligibilities through the half funding. With heritage preservation, the Lunenburg Academy roof and the project that's commencing already for $1.27 million with partners supporting that. Under tourism, the culture and economic development, another one, your sustainable cultural tourism plan, and highlighting by also your marketing levy and short-term accommodation levy that's taken effect in 2027. We've updated the parking bylaws, implemented hotspot, which we're seeing great successes with, and actually the hybridization of it has both been great on a staffing level of collecting the money from the meters, but also being able to collect at full periods at all the times and giving people that option that are moving to a digital age. Accessibility and inclusion, we've made countless improvements to it, and specifically it'll be mentioned in the Recreation Director's report, like the improvements to the accessible entrance at the community center. You've supported the Opera House and the expansion of the Rick Hansen accessibility approved front entrance. You've given out a large sum of money within your community grants. You've supported the daycare program and their building and their progress. You approved a $12 million general operating budget. You've provided additional tax property relief to residents. Just flipping through here. And further to that, with your motion action lists, continuing to look at things that oversee everything that has been mentioned here. Other ones are your hack and trolley bylaws. We've done the housing market study. We've advanced major capital projects. If I'm not mistaken, last year was 25 of 27 projects completed with 2 carryovers, and you just approved another 2 of the major capital purchases for this year. So, council, you have established new strategic priorities, which have been presented and approved by this council, and staff are beginning to implement those. I just wanted to show council what you've accomplished in 1 year, and that you should be proud of yourselves and staff for how we've worked and how we've been able to get through a lot of these projects, a lot of these initiatives, policies, procedures. but I wanted to make sure you were aware then and to celebrate these wins. So council, this is for information, but I felt it was necessary to bring forward and give you guys information based on what you have done.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a comment that none of this would have been possible without the hard work and dedication of the staff that we have. And quite frankly, the cooperation of our citizens for some of these projects, because some of these projects do, traffic gets disturbed or whatever might happen. And we've been very fortunate. We don't have people really complaining too often because maybe there's a traffic stop for 5 minutes on Lincoln Street or Montague Street. So again, I think we only achieve these accomplishments by all working together for the right reasons. And again, I think that, a big thank you has to go to our staff. And I'm not talking about the staff just that sit at this table and at these meetings. I'm talking about from the ground up, because I've always said the staff that really make us look good, can make us look good or really bad. Public Works Department, the guys that drive the snow plows and fix the water and sewer leaks. And I think everybody in town commends that crew on a regular basis. So again, I just like to thank everybody around this table and everybody involved, because it's a team effort that we've accomplished some of the, most of these things. That's all I really have to say. Any other comments? Councilor Strong.
One is the loneliest number, but you left out the bandstand and how it's accessible. And I think that's a real achievement. This started day one for this council. And I'm really happy to start seeing some accessibility use of it. In the grapevine, I hear that there may be some people from Harborview Haven coming or contacting you about having a little performance. And I think seeing people in the community that need accessibility is inspiring. It's inspiring to me, and I'm sure it's inspiring to all my colleagues. And I second that thank you to staff, because without roads, we have no accessibility. But what did I also wanted to commend our citizen volunteers on Planning Advisory Committee and Heritage Advisory Committee. They don't receive any compensation, but when we call a meeting, they show up and they think and they put effort into it. And they're all part of this whole thing. We wouldn't have had an announcement about the Opera House last week without their input and then our input after their input. So yeah, big thanks to the entire community for making some of these things happen.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Deputy Mayor?
No, kudos as well to all the staff and all of the work that's gone into creating, this report. I think it's nice to see I've got lots of check marks of things that I think I'm personally very proud that we were able to accomplish. Again, it's not things that we physically do. We cannot do them without the support of staff and with staff actually implementing some of the ideas or coming up with the ideas on their own and implementing good positive things for our community. I think I actually have some questions or question marks on some things that perhaps I can query staff on at a later date. There's things that were referenced that I may have forgotten what they are because may have been early in the year previous that these things were upgraded. And things that are included here are to be celebrated, but they are kind of important things that are regularly done. So perhaps highlighting them in a report like this is helpful because they are so important, and yet they are things that staff do regularly. And I'm, in particular thinking of things like wastewater treatment reports and our water quality reports. Those things are, that's the work of staff that just gets done without any direction from us because it's a, required work, but it's, of paramount importance to ensure that these kinds of very vital services are not only available but functioning well. And so those things are included here too. So perhaps we could talk about how we can highlight some of these things in like a point form or some way that's just a easier way to pull out what the achievements have been of the past year. So anyway, that's comments on it, but
Counselor Strong?
I can't let it go because I feel like I'm being encouraged to give a notice of motion out of this, and that we need a corporate communications and public engagement strategy. And if you're looking for that, I'm prepared to give notice of motion now.
Through you, Chair, you can. It is in your strategic priorities and it is something we are working on. So you've already set that as a council as one of the projects. Good for council.
Okay, so there's no action to be taken on that report. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to 10.6, the FCM Green Municipal Fund application. Paul, you're up.
Thank you, Council. So before you tonight, we've been working with the Clean Foundation on trying to get some grant funding to study this building and the old fire hall. You've budgeted $150,000 in capital funding for studying these for building envelopes, architectural designs, and what we can do for next steps with these buildings. Part of this grant would be to look at the full building envelope. What could we do for energy savings, setting us up for best practices moving forward, as well as looking at opportunities for community engagement for council and understanding where do we want to go with, for instance, the old fire hall. When we're looking at this building, it's a very large building, and are there opportunities that we're not looking at just for town hall? Are there other scenarios that council wants to look at, whether it's through the cultural tourism strategy or other? What this would do is we were seeking to apply for funding. So we moved through a pre-application phase and we're now into the full application phase with FCM. With that, we are aiming for $75,000 of grant funding with an estimated municipal contribution of $90,000. So it puts the budget at $165,000. If successful, we would follow a lot of the processes of engagement and community study on this. If we're not successful within this grant, we would just come back to what we have in our capital project, which would be more focused on just looking at the building envelopes and architectural design, but not necessarily larger, deeper community consultations or processes as outlined, or having the in-depth look at the environmentals or full building envelope in a more in-depth scenario. So council, as part of this, the applicants or FCM is seeking a motion of council for support. Although you have it in your budget, they're looking at a more focused motion that should be added to our application, which is before you tonight. So at this time, council, if you have any questions on what is being presented, open to any questions.
Mr. Strong?
As by way of information, I've been told repeatedly by federal and provincial representatives in the province that the mayor's letter should always have a letter going with the grant application and provide the motion on behalf of council and CC to those whoever is connected to the grant. I'm wondering if I was reading this in my beautiful seaside vacation. And I'm wondering if we should up the project description and describe these buildings and lands represent the original grant to the town from the British government that now comprises the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the town council acts as the site manager for the town of Lunenburg in looking after this site. Because it's not a situation where we can just go and demolish buildings. This is a retrofit, and I think that makes it Okay, so you understand what I'm saying there. And the other thing is that, where did I have it? And it's really important to me, having spent some time around architects in the city that really talk about net zero all the time, and it never makes sense until you understand that net zero is achieved more quickly with an existing building than it can ever be achieved with a new building, because there is a net that goes into a new building that you have to take into consideration. So I just think those are two things that we can say in there. And why do they require the Lunenburg comprehensive community project or community plan?
Through you, Chair, it's as noted as a resource document. It has, again, touches base on UNESCO, touches base on the importance of these sites, and that's why it's included as just as a reference document, no different than our land use bylaw, speaking of the site in the areas, and some of our other documentation that we've put in from previous condition assessments that have been done.
Okay, so those are the only comments I have. It's important that we copy this to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and that the mayor sends the wording of whatever it is that we come up with tonight on behalf of council.
Any other comments? I just think this is the start. If we get this funding of possibly more funding down the road on two buildings that we all know we have to fix. And you know, this one is, for example, we blew the circuit twice in this room today trying to put an air conditioner on. So this building definitely has to be, you know, some work done to it. And the old fire hall, you just have to look behind you and look at the old fire hall. So, I mean, I think this is a start, because once we find out what we need to do to make it green, to make it net zero, that's when you can really access funding. Go ahead.
I have further comments then, because after attending the award of $6.2 million to the Opera House, it was said to me several times, wow, this is great. You're making an important building in the town of Lunenburg accessible. So, and you know, you're conserving the district, you're paying attention to all these things. So I think we have to heighten that somehow. This is a pretty historic courthouse for the South Shore of Nova Scotia. I can tell some stories from here, but I won't. There's some stuff here that's pretty important. And again, that net zero thing, when you start with an existing building, you're far ahead than if you're starting with new construction.
So we have did you make you didn't make a motion, did you?
Okay. I'm going to make a motion that council support the town of Lunenburg's application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund Sustainable Municipal Buildings Program for a feasibility study titled Studying Emission Reduction Opportunities Targeting Net Zero Performance in 2 Municipal Heritage Buildings in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. And then should I add? And that council authorizes the town of Lunenburg to submit an application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund Sustainable Municipal Buildings Program for a feasibility study examining emission reduction, energy performance, resilience, and adaptive reuse opportunities for town hall and the old fire hall. And that council confirm that funding for this project has been approved in the town's 2026-27 capital budget, including the required municipal contribution toward the total project cost of $165,000 should the $75,000 grant application be approved. And that council direct that the resolution be submitted with the application as evidence of municipal support.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by the deputy mayor. Now, any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor.
No questions, just kudos again. I think this is an incredibly important initiative, and I'm very happy that we're making some headway in making an application.
Anyone else? So there's been a motion and it's been seconded on the floor. I'm not going to reread it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. So we'll move on to 10.7 and we circle back to Christie on recreation, capital and operations update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hello again, everyone. So council, before you is a report just highlighting some of the capital and operational budget items since our beginning of our fiscal, which includes up to very much, I guess, the end of July. So for completed projects, we purchased a used truck for departmental use, which is being fully used, especially this time of year. Community center, we completed our accessible entrance upgrades, which is super exciting. It includes some repairs and widening of the path, slip-resistant stairs, new handrails, some new doors with the push button. And also to note, I said there was 2 new accessible parking spots, but it's actually, we had another one added, so there's been 3 added, which is perfect for the pool and accessing the fields, and then also to accompany our new entrance. One maybe less noticeable project completed was the community center exterior repairs facing the soccer field. So it was just a door that was rotten and serving of no value. It was not functional at all, leaking water, and repairs to siding. So all of that is now tight, and a concrete base was added, so water is no longer an issue in the basement. Behind the scenes win was we entered into a customer service agreement with Simcoe Refrigeration. So basically that just gives us preferred service, discounted on rates for materials. And it also includes our startup and shutdown. And without that, we were paying like higher prices and everything is treated as an emergency. But now we have, guaranteed prioritized service. Some in progress projects, which is the upgrade to our ice plant, the arena. Some of the repairs have already been replaced and are complete. The rest of the work is ongoing as things arrive. It'll go right through August, right until we do start up. Arena painting, staff has been completing much of the painting themselves. We're probably about 80% complete. They're working on it today. And that will continue through the rest of this month in time for us to open. A couple projects that are still in the early stages would be the replacement of our electric meters and upgrades to the panel. This is a project being directed through Nova Scotia Power. So we're just in a holding pattern as they decide which type of meters are required and send them our way. Another early stage project would be replacement of the light bulbs to both facilities, arena and community center. Still working on sourcing some light bulbs that are energy efficient, but also suitable, and exploring rebates to help reduce the cost. Once we have those, staff can install themselves. And then there is a list too of events to date since April 1. It's about a dozen additional events held at both facilities on top of our regular programming. Regular programming is not listed as it's an ongoing schedule. And that concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Christy? Councilor Fullerton.
You've been busy. This is great. Thank you very much. Only one question, and that was the new meters that you talked about. Is that the arena, the community center, one or both?
Through the chair, that is the arena.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for Christy? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, not a question. I just have a big check mark on the list and with a note, well done. It's nice to see so much getting accomplished and and so many improvements being made, and to the ice plant and to the accessibility to the arena, all very positive. Thanks.
Anybody else? Councilor Strong?
I loved backdoor. That was the first thing I noticed back in June, I guess, when they did it. And the kids loved having a little shower there. Anyway, it looks terrific back there, so everything looks like it's going smoothly.
No other comments. It's for information only, so there's no motion we made. But again, I'd like to thank Christy and the staff at the arena, or the recreation department, I should say, for everything they do. One thing I'll say about especially Trevor, for example, they always take pride in what they do. So our arena at the beginning of the year always looks really good. When the ice goes in, everything's freshly painted. The boards are all painted. They really do take pride in that facility. So again, thank you very much to our staff. because, and we also have the best ice in probably Nova Scotia still. So again, thank you to staff. So we'll move on to 10.8, electric substation report. Chief Paul, okay.
Thank you, Council. This report was created by Lisa Dagley, our Director of Finance, but between us and overseeing the electric utility. So, Council, you have a recommendation before you to formally approve the emergency capital expenditures for 26-27 for the electrical utility for 81W-231, the recloser for $53,475, and main substation transformer bushing of $15,000, with both items being funded through the electrical utility depreciation reserves. So this is a fairly lengthy background, but in summary, we did have issues with the electrical substation identified early in June, resulting in an emergency outage on June 4th through 5th. You may remember that. The summary that is provided to you was put together by electrical engineering support from SEMA and was prepared on July 30th, 2026. So in summary, there was found that on Tuesday, June 2nd, NSP, while performing a monthly substation inspection at the Town Star Street Substation 81W, determined that the main power transformer was leaking oil and that it appeared to be from the top of the transformer around the entry hatch and was dripping approximately 2 drips every 10 seconds. Oil contamination was deployed and town staff were advised. Through the discussions and additional inspections carried out on the 3rd and 4th, town staff and SEMA decided it was best to remove the transformer from service on the Thursday night of the 4th to avoid permanent damage to the transformer. During late evening, early morning outages of June 4th and 5th, the load transfer was transferred to the existing 2 spare backup power transformers. Unfortunately, during the 4th and 5th outage, the reclosers and the feeders failed to close back into service. As a result, the 81W-232 load was transferred to existing spare bus, which as already supplying backup recloser services to 81W-231. So that's the Bridgewater Victoria circuit. Having both of these 81W-232, that's the new town in Masons Beach, and 81W-231, the Bridgewater Victoria on the same feeder, is not a preferred solution. However, with the summer weather, conditions have been lower, so it's been adequate to make these repairs. Overall, we have been able to make those repairs with K-Line, NSP, and SEMA and everyone working together within this. We did have to have the ordering of those parts as noted. So we had the cost of work of $21,900 and budgeted accounts of the substation repairs for 26-27 is $20,000 as well. So we went through once the issues were discovered and received NSP town staff and SEMA brought in K-Line to determine the issues with the other 2 reclosers. The issues there have been identified and issues of approximately 2 years have been on to get a spare bus during that time. So this feeder could not work until the load was removed from that feeder, so the 232. It was found that it was a bad recloser itself and not the control. So we also reached out to our partners in the MMEUA if anybody had spare reclosers. The answer was no. Everybody was either using their spare reclosers or had them in order as well. We were fortunate enough that we were able to do the testing and get a recloser and get everything repaired within that, but there was additional costs above mentioned of 22,000 budgeted accounts for the substation repairs of 20,000. Through that as well, we also ordered, so the 81W-232 recloser was not repairable and any unit was procured. The unit was tested and installed July 23rd. The cost of the recloser was $53,475 and is unbudgeted capital expenditure for 26-27 of the electrical utility. So present conditions as of July 30th, the current situation is the substation is in operation with 2 spare backup transformers. The main power transformer has been repaired and tested, and we are awaiting delivery on the replacement bushing, which I believe has arrived now. If not, it's coming very early next week. We are planning with NSP to put the repairs unit back into service soon, along with the 231 Bridgewater Victoria Street recloser. and the testing and verified recloser of the 232, that's the Newtown Masons Beach. This will put the substation back into its normal state. It is anticipated that the work will be completed by the end of August. The cost of the new bushing is estimated at $15,000. It is on a budgeted capital expenditure for 26-27 in the electrical utility. So the failed 231 recloser is going to be sent back to the repair shop and to determine if the unit can be repaired and to be kept as a spare part. If not, we will have to consider purchasing a spare. So council, I wanted to bring you up to speed within the financials here, and you've as outlined, and you can see it in the financial reports as well as the reflective of the motions that are before you. So this work is going was scheduled within the 5-year capital plans, but again, situations and emergency repairs had to occur, and we moved forward with those repairs, but bringing forward the proper motions for council approval based on the emergency repairs we did.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Paul? I'd just like to say that sometimes your improvements get sped up when you're not planning on it. So at least everything we've done was in the long-term plan. So it's just done a little early, I guess. So, and hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have to do anything else any earlier than we have planned in the budget. But again, that's one of the main reasons the electric utility is our key #1 priority.
And through you, Chair, we'll also be bringing a report forward in September that talks about all the capital upgrades that have occurred to date, very similar to what we've been doing with the other departments.
Excellent. And I think where we are to date, for a quick update to my colleagues, because I met with their Minister Corcoran Greek last week, and I had a little report to give her that basically when this is replaced and everything done, our utility will be up to standards we haven't seen since about 2006. So again, we're definitely making headway. So it's, thank you very much to staff once again and to my colleagues for making this our top priority. I think it's very important, obviously. So there is a recommendation in front of us. Does somebody want to make? Go ahead, Councilor Ravenel.
Sure. I would like to move that council formally approve the emergency capital expenditures for 26-27 for the electrical utility for 81W-231 recloser for $53,475 and main substation transformer bushing of $15,000, with both items being funded from the electric utility depreciation reserves.
So moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Fullerton. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. So we move on to number 11, notice of motions, information requests, and council reports. So there is a notice of motion that we'll do first, and that's the deputy mayor. So you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I note that I had intended, or I had given notice of motion to be brought forth to the meeting tonight, but has since been made aware of the fact that there is a currently work being done by, or work has been done by our planning staff to bring these amendments forward without need of further direction. So if I could, and I noticed that we had Mr. Howell come in the room, so I'm hoping that perhaps he can provide some information to assure us all of that. And if so, my motion would be kind of a moot point. So would you be able to speak to that? Thanks.
Through the chair to deputy mayor. Yes, so the notice of motion was in relation to bringing in some mandatory parking requirements. So those were something that had been flagged for quite a while through the motion action list, and it was actually top of mind when we went out for our RFP, and it's been part and parcel of what we were intending to do throughout. So that definitely. And regarding to height, a lot of the concerns in relation to the plan as it stands, and a lot of our developments have to do with height, current height allowances. And so the work is intended to look at that sort of across the board, in particular in areas within Old Town, as well within relation to the buffer around the UNESCO designation and the Heritage Conservation District in particular. Where we land on that, we still have to do some work and do some public consultation as part of this process, but the intention is to revise those to some degree to bring it more in line with what sort of the other plans and policies that we have in place, in particular the HCD plan and bylaw. So.
Thank you. So, and I noticed, yeah, the plan amendments included the very two basically that I had brought forth in my notice of motion. And again, for everyone's awareness, this is the RFP's been closed. We have some proponents who have made put forth or responded to the RFP. So with that understanding, there's also a timeline that's been planned for this work to be done. So would you be able to speak to that?
Certainly, through the chair to the deputy. The expectation in the RFP was that the delivery of the amendments would be at latest January 31st of 2027. That's to account for research, drafting, public consultation, and the potential that we may have to have a bit of back and forth with the Department of Municipal Affairs before they would come into effect. So, but that is, if we look at standards across the province, usually these types of amendments take upwards of a year, but because there has been a considerable amount of work done to date, and we are being very disciplined with our consultants, that we can meet that timeline as expected.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I want to clarify, I actually had a citizen contact me to say, what does that word immediately mean in my notice of motion? And I had to clarify, and so I want to make clear that, and as you mentioned, that there is a necessary process that these kinds of amendments must go through, which involves community consultation, and it has to be put through the rigors of community consultation and further review by council and staff to try to get the amendments to where we believe they should be and where the community wants them to be. So hopefully that we can accommodate that necessary step in the timeline that is being forecast, which I think would serve us all very well. So thanks.
Thank you. So we don't need to make that motion then, okay?
Is it okay that I'm just looking to our CEO just to withdraw that notice of motion? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's gone. So we'll just go back to council reports and that like normal. So we'll start with the right, Councillor Strong.
A couple of things. The first is that a year ago, this council endorsed a review to Parks Canada to review the designation of Old Town Lunenburg Historic District to include layers of history that are currently do not show on the monument down below, and hopefully lead to some engagement within the community. I got an email a couple of days ago, and I thought I'd update you on it. And this is a process that sometimes can take up to 5 years to get to where we are. The email from the government is that, as you may recall, the review of this designation request is currently underway, and a historian has been appointed. So we should be hearing more. I don't know, while Mark is on leave of absence, there might be information coming into his office for that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I have a letter from Tim at the Tim McCauley up at the Harborview Haven. And we had a resignation on our board of a resident representative. And he wants us to be aware, in accordance with the bylaws of the of Harborview Haven, of an appointment of a new member from the town of Lunenburg. So he's saying that we are pleased to receive interest from a qualified local candidate and are pleased to announce the appointment of Mr. Mark Narsansky to the vacant position. And he needs our support on that. Because their old bylaws require that. So I'm assuming we don't have to have a motion. It would just be that we agree to. Okay, so that's it. I guess we have to write him Tim a letter saying that
I think you should make a motion.
you think that.
Yeah,
this
just
late
to
in the
make it
day?
formal. I think so, yeah.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that Lunenburg Town Council endorse the appointment of Mr. Mark Narsansky to the Harborview Haven Board of Directors.
Seconded by the deputy mayor. Any further question? Go ahead, Councilor Babineau.
Sorry, just a procedural question. Was there supposed to be a motion to waive the notice of motion first? I don't know. I don't know if that's required in this instance, but.
Technically, probably yes, but where this is really just, it's a formality. I think we're okay.
And then the third thing that I wanted
We
to.
have to vote first. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carried, unanimous.
Okay, and the third thing is that the Trishaws have arrived at Harborview Haven and they are a huge generator of interest within the community. I guess they've worked out an agreement to be able to use the trail system. I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Through you, Chair, I haven't personally heard, so look forward to hearing more about it.
Okay, I will ask that at the next board meeting. And they were notified this week by me that the bandstand is now accessible and they'll be in touch with you about having an impromptu concert, which I thought was kind of exciting. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilor Daphne, all the way from Hawaii.
I know, Hawaii. I gotta tell you, the weather there was much nicer than here. Believe it or not. Congratulations to my friend, Angela Bennett, who became a first-time grandmother this week. Her daughter Jillian gave birth to a baby girl, Evangeline Joy. Great-grandmother is Helen Bennett, who is a very young-looking great-grandmother. Special events and visitors happening this weekend. Class of 86 and the class of 76 are having their 40th and 50th reunions. Speaking for the class of 86, we'll be crisscrossing the town, including tours of the Not Ruland House, the Academy, and some reflection time at the memorial bench for our late classmate, Jamie Almeida. While I was doing a little actual work at work, looking at some plants and stuff, I came across a quote, which I think it's appropriate for me being a landscaper, but it's a quote about mental health, and I'm not sure who to credit the quote to, but it says, "Keep watering yourself, you're growing." So just keep that in mind when the days are bad. I'll come water you and we'll sit and we'll chat. Congratulations to the Folk Harbor Society for another successful festival. I caught one of the presentations on Sunday, which was Seaman's Day, at the Fisheries Museum, and it was centered. The presentations were centered around the August Gales. And the presentation that I saw with a good family friend was about a family on Sable Island during the first August Gales. It's very good. It actually made you think and put you there on Sable Island during those days. And then finally, I stopped by the gift shop on my way out because you always have to shop. Lots of good Christmas gift ideas because, as you know, winter is the season to love.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Lunenburg is incredibly busy this summer, as we all know, and I'm sure we'll mention a number of things. I just wanted to shout out, as we already mentioned, Folk Harbor, but Boxwood Festival and the Lunenburg Theatre Collective production, and I think they have more in the offing. And so there's no end to the opportunities for things to do in Lunenburg, which is wonderful, and speaks to the very active community of volunteers that we have and we are grateful for. And I just, my one kind of formal commitment of late was for the annual meeting of the Lunenburg Marine Society, who looks after the memorial on the waterfront. And of course, they get the one of their few sources of funds is the collection from our Fisher's Memorial Service, which is coming up in early September. So just a reminder of that, but also a reminder that or I guess public service announcement that very impressive Compass Rose Monument speaks to the heritage of our community as a fishing town and what that's brought to our community, and that this again was the result of a community volunteer effort. And it is still community volunteers that maintain that monument. So when there are names to be added or when there are improvements to be made, as there have been in the recent couple of years, to the landscaping and to the security of that little section of public space, it is through the efforts of that small committee, and they welcome donations to help with that work.
Thank you. Councillor Babineau.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Greek.
Nothing for this evening, thank you.
Councillor Fullerton.
Yes, actually. I always, when I prepare to come to these meetings and talk about the things that we've all been doing, I always look at my old school calendar book that sits on my desk. And it's full for the last 30 days, that's for sure. Some of the highlights, I attended the South Shore Open Doors Association annual meeting in Bridgewater a few weeks ago. They've had a very busy year of major accomplishments, and they have more planned in the coming year. We had our big day couple of Saturdays ago with the 50th anniversary of the National Trust and of the 75th anniversary of the Canadian Dory Racing Association, both on the same day. That was quite a day. And it was an amazing day. Lots of really great stuff happened. There are a couple of new exhibits at the Fisheries Museum that the other councillors talked about. And the Opera House announcement, Folk Art Festival, Folk Music Festival. We went on a cemetery tour last night. That was neat. And upcoming early in September, probably before our first September council meeting, the South Shore Open Doors Association is planning another roundtable with stakeholders and community leaders throughout Lunenburg and Queens County. And Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee is actually meeting here in council chambers the first week of September as part of its road trip. During the summer, during the warm months, not the summer, the LCAAC has been going around to the different municipalities that are part of the committee and visiting at the facilities. And there are also some educational workshops coming through LCAAC. They're all virtual throughout September and October. I don't know if anybody else here was copied on that today, but I got that this afternoon. I'll share it with everyone in case people want to attend. And that's it for me.
Thank you. I just basically most things have been said here already, but I just like to, first of all, the CDRA Dory Races eliminations are this Saturday at 9 o'clock. The winners of the elimination races will be who represents Canada in the international races in Gloucester in early September. So go down at 9 o'clock Saturday morning and cheer on Team Canada. I was told class of 86 is attending and they're going to be loud and proud. So also like to bring up that we've had two big announcements this past 3 weeks or so involving the federal government. The first is the daycare. That is a huge asset and benefit to the entire community and surrounding area. It means more people will be able to work here, come here and actually take jobs and go to work. It's going to open up, I think, approximately 60 or 70 new spots. So again, that's great news. And that announcement was a $4+ million announcement. And then just recently, a couple days ago, we had the Honorable MP Jessica Fancy and the Honorable Karina Gould here to announce $6.2 million for the Opera House, which again will be a huge economic driver for Lunenburg and surrounding area. They'll be able to bring things to the community that we've never been able to bring here before. So again, though both those facilities, I'd like to congratulate. And I'd just like to say that it shows when all three levels of government get on the same page and work together on projects, what can be done. I had a very, very positive meeting with Minister Susan Corkum-Greek in the past couple of weeks. And we actually met in my office last Thursday with MP Fancy and Karina Gould, and we had about an hour meeting, and it was a very positive meeting. So again, you know, we love keeping those doors and those lines of communication open, and I think it only benefits all of us, no matter what color you wear. I think if we all work together, we can all work to make Lunenburg a much better place to live, shop, play, and stay. So that's all I have for tonight. Items of consideration for committee of the whole. We all know to just email staff if you want something on the committee of the whole meeting, which is September 1st. Motion action list is on the back of the agenda for us to keep following. And now we need a motion to go into closed session. Moved by Councilor Fullerton, seconded by Councilor Strong. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.